Hey guys, in today's video, I wanted to share with you guys my final review on iOS 26.2. I've been running iOS 26.2 RC2 on this device for nearly 1 week now. Obviously, in today's video, I want to talk about the performance, the battery life, any bugs or any issues that I've encountered on RC2. We'll also talk about the expected release date, which by the way, should be happening here shortly. I'm actually quite surprised Apple has yet to release this software update. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So the first thing I want to talk about is a new firmware update now currently available for AirPods Pro 3 and AirPods Pro 2. Apple recently released AirPods Pro 3 new firmware update 8B30, and for AirPods Pro 2, all models, Apple also released 8B28. Now, unfortunately, Apple did not specify exactly what it is that they're fixing with this latest release. As per usual, they just say bug fixes and other improvements. But if you want to update your AirPods, now this typically happens automatically, but you can force the update by pairing your AirPods Pro to your iPhone and make sure that they're both connected to a power source and let them sit next to each other uninterrupted for about 20 minutes, and then you can come back, pop your AirPods open, and then go into settings, go into AirPods settings, scroll down all the way to the bottom of the screen, and you'll see the version number right there. If your AirPods have been successfully updated, then you can see right there the new number available for the current build or the current release for the firmware. So yeah, new firmware update now available for AirPods Pro 3 and AirPods Pro 2, all models, right before the release of iOS 26.2. So the first thing I want to talk about is performance. I ran a benchmark here comparing iOS 26.2 RC1 versus RC2 and take a look at some of these numbers here. So RC1 single core score is 3,731. RC2 single core score is 3,828, so a slight increase on the single core performance there. And you see the multi-core performance, we have RC1 with a 9,678 versus RC2, which is of course going to be 9,870. So a slight increase in performance, and it definitely shows, I have to say, although not every device is going to be running perfect, testing my devices here in the studio, it is buttery smooth. Everything is running very well. Apple did fix the one bug where you move widgets around on the home screen and tap here on the rearrange tab and it crashes the iPhone. That's also been addressed here. Some of the shadows or some of the shattering that was happening with the control center, that's been addressed as well. In terms of overall performance, I have to say this software for me is running buttery smooth, and the numbers definitely reflect that here as well. So in terms of overall performance, testing multiple devices from iPhone 15 all the way up to iPhone 17 Pro Max, performance looks to be very solid so far. Next, I want to talk about battery life and charging. A lot of you guys are asking, have I encountered any overheating while charging my device? And the answer to that is no overheating whatsoever on this iPhone or any iPhone running iOS 26.2 RC2. Rather is wireless charging or using the wire, no overheating whatsoever. Now, if we take a look here at some of these numbers, you see I get through my entire day with no issues, over 8 hours of on-screen time. I think battery life has sustained pretty well, pretty solid, very similar to iOS 26.1, which is not necessarily a bad thing. In terms of battery health, I know a lot of you guys were asking in regards to battery health, it still retained 100% battery health. So things are looking good in terms of charging, no overheating. Of course, battery life is pretty solid based on my experience here testing multiple devices. So yeah, in terms of that, I would say it's pretty solid as well, including older devices, by the way. Now, of course, no software will ever be perfect. So next I want to talk about two minor bugs that I've noticed on the latest iOS 26.2 RC. And the first one has to do with the app icons when unlocking my device. Sometimes they disappear for about a second or a split second from the home screen and then they come right back. I'm not sure exactly what's causing that, especially when I reboot my device or if I'm using the clear option for the icons. Sometimes they just disappear for a split second or a second and then they come right back. So nothing major, but something that I wanted to point out. And number two, this one's a little more serious, I would say. So this one has to do with CarPlay. So I've noticed that when I use CarPlay with this iPhone running iOS 26.2 RC, sometimes it would get laggy or choppy, okay? And when I get an incoming call, sometimes it would disconnect. Now, it doesn't happen all the time, but when it happens, it's super annoying. So yeah, choppiness is some issues issues with CarPlay still persist here with iOS 26.2, the RC2. Now, with that being said, when can we expect Apple to release this software? And I have to be honest, guys, I thought Apple would release this software sometime this week, but it appears that Apple will be waiting, and we can almost certainly guarantee that iOS 26.2 will be released next week on the week of the 15th of December, right before the holiday break here. I would say Apple would release on Monday the 15th alongside the new release of Apple Fitness Plus, which will be expanding to 28 more markets. So it looks like you only need iOS 26.1 or later, but Apple could make this an entire release altogether, releasing iOS 26.2 and the expansion of Apple Fitness Plus. And there you guys have it. These are going to be my final thoughts on iOS 26.2. Should you update, obviously that's going to be ultimately up to you. I think it's a pretty solid update. Battery life is pretty good. Performance is pretty solid. Other than the minor bugs that I mentioned, this is going to be a great solid update for the iPhone. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.